along with State Bay and Little Cayman.
Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Why rush around paying bills when you can pay most of your bills online? Cayman National offers an extensive list of service providers. Visit CaymanNational.com and log on to our personal or business online banking systems. Not an online banking customer? Contact their customer support team on 949-8300 for more information.
Here is where tradition never dies. This is your radio, Cayman.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here. Hey, maybe a little bit rainy and wet outside, but it's still a wonderful Wednesday. We get things off with the good friends from the Cayman Civil Service Association. 12:30, Councillor Austin Harris will join us and we'll get a good preview and update on what's been happening in the Legislative Assembly. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And thanks again to the President of the Cayman Civil Service Association, Mr. John Bothwell, and the Secretary, Ms. Zita May Borden, for joining us this afternoon and giving us a continued preview of the Civil Service Association. President John, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us on. And thanks for having us on TV. I've even put on my nice shirt coming out today. So, I'm not in shorts and a T-shirt like I've been for the last couple of days working on the water. So, yeah.
Listen, I have to apologize to you taking you off the water to come into the studio.
That's how I feel too. Thank you. But no, for this, we'll do anything for the civil service.
Well, that is the thing. We see the sacrifice of service and always with a smile, So, Zita, good afternoon as well, ma'am.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us.
I'm glad you're not in shorts and a T-shirt as well. No.
Actually, Ms. Zita's coming in on her afternoon off just for this.
I was just going to say, but... And this is what people don't appreciate,
Mm-hmm.
They don't, Anyway, you know what? We're not going to go there. let's just get to work, because there's some compost out there that we're going to probably tell us something different. But anyway, how it go, right? Now, every so often we get a good chance to be able to continue our dialogue with the Civil Service Association and give not just members, prospective members, but a wider public an insight, a continuing chance to dialogue with us. So take us through today, and again, thanks for allowing us to take some time.
Yep, not a problem. So today we got two things, particularly for members, but just so everybody knows what we are doing for our members. We now have our office staffed. So the Civil Service Association office on Hospital Road, we've hired Mr. Henry Parchment to work there as part-time as our office officer. We're open Mondays 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Thursdays 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. for members who want to come in, get assistance sorting things out, make contact with the Civil Service Association. Obviously, he will be doing the work of keeping the association going, keeping things moving along, as well as interacting with members. So this was something members have been asking for a while. They wanted a staffed office. We got the office about 2 years ago. We've now got the staffer in there. We're up and running. Mondays 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Thursdays 1 to 4 p.m. We want to see how those hours work for our members. And really now, this is a chance now for our members to start talking back to us. Come in, talk to Mr. Parchment or email us, cicsa@gov.ky, and let us know, are these hours working? What other services do you want us to start putting in place using this resource?
Indeed. And it's important. I mean, you have all the other avenues of contact today, but having a physical presence and a tangible body.
Yeah, definitely. The members at our AGMs, kept on saying, we have an office now, let's get somebody in there. So we're proud to say that we do have our office staffed, and that, our civil servant members are, free to go there during those times, Mondays 10 to 3 and Thursdays 1 to 4, and interact with Mr. Parchment there in the office and give him any ideas that they want, or if they need to talk to somebody or make an appointment to see one of the or membership management council, then he can make that for them. And
I think too the civil servants quite quickly would recognize Mr. Henry. I mean, as his words, he'd say he's a fixture.
Yeah,
to the civil service.
Again, I was saying that a lot of the members were very keen on that. If possible, we get an older civil service member who knows how things work and come in and then relate directly to our members and know exactly what they're experiencing and talking about, and act as that link between them and the management council and what needs to get done.
So they can come in and maybe from the office presence be able to start to share with the executive what is it that we need and how we can go about it, and how that person to guide them, and maybe see the expanded services and roles.
Exactly. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the 21st century, right?
That's right. That's right. Yes.
All right. Congrats to Mr. Henry for taking on that task.
Yeah, we're actually very happy that someone his caliber took it up, because it is just a little part-time job, and so to have someone as good as him who can step in there, set this whole thing up and get it going. We were very lucky to have someone of that caliber. I should say our members are very lucky to have someone of that caliber working for them.
Yeah, that's it, man. And he's
he's a retired civil servant, and he's was a valued member of the government civil service. So it's good that we have a civil servant or former civil servant in there.
I'll tell you what, you just need to stop in cello and have him straight out smile with you. Tell him no. It's always there.
I mean, if what you need is just someone to come in and chat with about stuff, if that's what the association can do for you, drop on by.
All right. Now the office for those members who do not know, he says Hospital Road.
Hospital Road. So
right upstairs, number 1 shoe shop.
Yeah.
The present number 1 shoe shop. They had the Jacheek building on the other side, but this one now is the plaza on Hospital Road.
Right.
So we're right upstairs, the number 1 shoe shop.
The same place where civil servants used to go or would go for the back to school.
Yes.
Same place.
Same place.
Same place. And actually, that's where the civil service will be going again this summer now for the back to school program, the school bags that we give out to our members. We're going to be doing that the 30th of July to the 3rd of August.
Monday to Friday.
Monday to Friday. Don't come on Saturday, no. Monday to Friday. We'll be obviously doing direct emails and things like that to our members, putting it in our Facebook page so that members, as we get closer to time, we know the times, everything's happening. But that's one of the things that Mr. Parchment will be helping us get ready for over the coming weeks. We've got materials coming in. We've got to start packing the bags so that we'll be ready for us to distribute to our members that time. We'll also be doing it in Cayman Brack again, of course, and again we'll be doing sort of direct emails out to the members to let them know when that's happening over there.
All right, so the end of July, that last week, the 30th.
Yeah. Monday, 30th of July until Friday, the 3rd of August.
Right.
It's the back to school. A lot of people have been, seeing me and asking me, when is it taking place? And I, said the last week in July. So now we're formally announcing it again for all civil servants. We know that there's civil servants not only in the GAB, but they're all around. So we just want them to know that back to school with the Civil Service Association. And make sure that you are a member of the association. And that is if you can show us that $5 is being deducted each month. We're not going to turn anyone away. If you're a civil servant and not yet a member, you can come by and sign up, and you will get something also. So just letting the civil servants know that it is the 30th, Monday the 30th of July until Friday the 3rd of August.
I think those of us who have received sort of that part of the back to school program, the book bag, and all the sort of attendance included parts of it. That itself is just a convenience and a wonderful little thank you. And the benefit of being a member, some of us have to, a lot of trouble just getting the bags and putting them together. You've been the first, just need to pick them up, right?
That's right. Yeah, we try to pack them with everything. We get our notification from a lot of the schools. They let us know what the children require, and we try to put as much as we can into the bags, going along with the school's recommendations. And our members, like I said, they come out, we have like almost 1,800 members, and usually a good bulk of those people just try to get in that week and pick them up. And like John said, we are also going to do it over in Cayman like we do every year.
Right. Now, I know that you shared the office is now staffed with Mr. Henry on Mondays from 10 to 3, and then Thursdays 1 to 4. During the week of July the 30th, the end of the last week of this month, that you're doing the back to school program. Are the office hours the same, or will it be a little bit?
No, we have to decide whether we're going to be doing it morning or afternoon, usually, or whether we're going to be doing it all day. But it will be someone there, or a bunch of us will be there every day, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, the actual hours is very much going to depend on what are the volunteers that we can get and how much we can cover. We want to do it as much. Every year we try to keep it as open as possible, but obviously it's very much done by volunteer members. So once we get that organized, that's when we will be doing the emails out to the membership saying, here's the specifics of how and when you can come and collect your bags for your kids going back to school.
And I think, Ms. As I was looking at one comment here online, this is just another way to maybe encourage members to remain members, incentivize prospective members. As you said, come and sign up and use this as an opportunity. President John.
Yeah, it's a good chance for new members to come sign up. We'll be there. We have the list of members. You come in. You're not a member, but obviously you've come this far. You want to join us. That's a good time to do it. Or anybody wanting to join ahead of time, drop us an email, cicsa@gov.ky. We're happy to sign up civil servants anytime they want to become a member and join the club. Obviously, it's open to retired civil servants as well. For civil servants, the fees are $5 a month taken directly from the paycheck. For retired members, it's $12 for the year. Just give us a check and you're signed up, kind of thing.
All right. Makes it any easier, I mean.
No, you can't get it in any easier than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would joke and say, unless on election day somebody votes for you, but that's what it is. I won't say that. It's not our job.
You've already said it.
Did I? Jeez. I'm just, it's how fans. We got to laugh. I mean, have you seen the skies outside?
I saw that. I was thinking maybe I shouldn't feel so bad not being on the vote today.
Yeah.
I launched them and I had to come back, for this. And then not so bad maybe.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
There you go, man. No, but I really appreciate, Mazida, you coming in on your day off, spend some time with us. And President, it just shows that civil servants are willing, at any time, every time, to be of service and of value. And we really appreciate it. So the office staff, the membership, prospective membership now can get someone to interact with and process it. Don't forget the back to school program at the end of this month.
End of this month, last week of this month. And any of our members, we want to hear from you. Drop us an email, come on the Facebook group, and we'll be putting out the more specifics about this over the course of the month. But yeah, we're still doing stuff. The Civil Service Association is working for its members.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Nazida.
Thank you very much for having us. And remember, the Civil Service Association is here for all our civil servants and our retirees too.
Hey, that's important. One day I hope to be able to say, hey, Anyway. President John, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Go out and enjoy what the weather has to offer. All right. When you come back, a very, very special guest, Councillor Austin Harris will be our guest, and we're going to talk about things that unfold in the Legislative Assembly. I might get him to share his mama's favorite flan recipe, but let's see if that happens. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You don't have to be accident prone to have an accident.
But there is a 1 in 10 chance you'll need to make a car insurance claim.
That's why BritK's low standard deductibles make sense.
Just $200 for no additional premium.
It means you can pay less for your car insurance with BritK.
And it costs less to claim.
That's cover without added costs.
Call BritK on 949-8699 or visit britk.ky.
And start saving now.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
The time is now. The speed is here. March to the beat of the mobile revolution with Flow 4G LTE and a prepaid mobile combo plan. Activate a Flow prepaid mobile combo plan to get calling minutes and data in one convenient package. And every plan comes with double data. Enjoy the proven best overall experience in Cayman with a Flow prepaid mobile combo plan. Now with double data, coverage, value, speed. Flow 4G LTE. Always connected, always faster. Visit discoverflow.ky. Terms and conditions apply.
Satisfy your World Cup cravings at Merengue Town. Now under sole ownership by Mr. Johnny. $15 bucket specials during the game. And after game time, it's party time. With Karaoke Wednesdays, the Friday night party with DJ Bambino. And on Saturday and Sunday, get your sweetness on with DJ Sugar. Enjoy free finger foods and soup. And don't forget about the fried fish specials. Only at Merengue Town. Located in Georgetown on Boilers Road off Walkers Road. Merengue Town. It's time. Feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here in this edition of Talk Today. As we have the wonderful company of Councillor Austin Harris in the studio. And I tell you, man, if I were more handsome, I would be worthy to be sitting next to you. But anyway, let's see how it goes today. All is well, sir?
All is very well, Sterling. What a great pleasure it is to have the opportunity to chat with you this afternoon, and certainly a very special good afternoon to the wider listening audience tuned in, and a particular special hello to those wider audience that may be from Prospect.
Yeah, you said West Bay, right? That's what I thought you said.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. West Bay and Prospect kind of sound similar.
Yeah, I was.
There's an S in there.
That's not what it is.
That's what it is.
Oh man. You know what? Let me just
and
be
a T. But there's a lot of similarities. There really are. There really are. So we're not that different. We may be 19 constituents, but that's just really from a. Again, as you know, an equality standpoint of representation. But at the end of the day, we aren't that different. Prospect, Georgetown South, Georgetown West, West Bay.
It sounds just alike to me, man.
Sounds just alike to me, exactly. As long as we don't lose sight of who we are, we don't have nothing to worry about.
I tell you, man, keep staring in the mirror, and if you like what looks back at you, then,
That's right.
You're moving forward.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You can still sleep with yourself at night, and all right, well, I'm on the right track.
Yeah, there's another joke that comes to mind, but let me hold on.
Hold on to that one for another forum. Always enjoy our company and our time together, Sterling. You're a lot of fun.
That's what they told me too until the men came, but that was a different show. Fox tells me to remind you, I'm on YouTube.
You and Ray Banker have far too much fun, by the way, on that fantastic occasional show that you do. If I may offer up a comment, I think you need to do more of those, because it's those culture shows, and you have a certain mannerism about you, and Ray, who's my friend. And certainly this is not a criticism, but he's a character unto himself.
No, because he's a character.
But a character, exactly.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy that show.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. That's been the feedback, and with the greatest respect to all who may be on the other side, it's not as supported as we would like.
Yes.
As much fun as we have presenting it and researching and learning, it's an incredible amount of work.
Yes.
And it's not one of those things where you just go and you find the stuff. It is challenging.
Well, certainly, whilst I'm not the Minister for Culture, I have had conversations with Ray in terms of where he thinks, where you both think culture can be highlighted as a part of that show, and the opportunities for growth. I think they're all good directions that you're heading into, and I know that Minister Seymour, who is responsible for culture, embraces all things culture related. So I wouldn't put those particular ideas in the drawer just yet. I believe that there's still opportunities coming down the pipeline. So, and again, it just so happens that I enjoy that particular program.
Thank you. And
my son does as well. By the way, when he's with me, we listen and we enjoy the conversations.
Even my children, I'll be honest with you, I think it's Ray, but maybe that's what it is. But even them, and there's a lot of information that is there that we're uncovering, that we're getting to share.
Yeah,
and it's an incredible amount of work, and I enjoy it tremendously.
Sure.
I really thank Ray. Thank you for highlighting that. It's something that we know the vision. We were just reflecting on it the other day. The impetus of the show, how it came about, the sort of work that we did initially to put it together to make the presentation.
So is it is actually work involved in it? Because I tell you what, from the listener perspective, it sounds like you're just having a little laugh and enjoying some good cooked food.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it is, man.
We say you make it look easy for the general public, but there's work behind the magic.
No, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. You're kind. But Ray he's amazing. Anybody who knows he's incredible.
Yeah.
But this is the thing too with the Legislative Assembly. I think not many of us, who unless we've gone and we sat in the assembly and watched some of the things, unless we've had a chance to maybe assist in some format with looking at some of the potential policy development, legislation and the like, we don't see the actual work that goes on. And I think that's unfortunate because perhaps as a public, maybe from the media, just use that generally, we don't do a respectful job in getting it out. There's always some vitriolic agenda that somebody seems to hang on, some spin that we want to put on things. Politicians, with great respect, don't always do themselves the best thing.
Yes.
But it comes back to a lack of respect for ourselves.
Yes.
And for our country.
Yes. Well, no, you're absolutely right. And certainly that brings us to the reason why we are here this afternoon. The government acknowledges, particularly in the past, that it may not have done an adequate job at communicating all of the important work that is being done on behalf of the country by those who were elected to serve. So the purpose of being here today is to not necessarily cry over spilt milk, but to take on board shortcomings of the past and improve on them going forward. We attended 3 very grueling days of meetings in the Legislative Assembly 2 weeks ago. We made amendments to over 12 different laws, some minor, some not so minor, but all of them intended to both improve the lives of the citizens who call Cayman home, who live, work, and have their being, and also to provide the necessary foundations that will enable the government, this coalition government of national unity, to achieve in some of its key objectives that it has set for itself over the course of its term. So, again, this is a terrific opportunity. It's a wonderful forum, and certainly with the phone lines, we have an opportunity to make sure that not only the work that the government has been doing is shared with the wider general public, but also to create that bridge of communication where there are areas that perhaps we don't understand. Maybe sometimes we ask, why do we do these things? We can, again, create that opportunity for communication so that we all can understand that we are working hard for the citizens of the Cayman Islands, and nobody, and I say it again, nobody on the coalition government is on vacation.
Well, I certainly appreciate you sharing. And I think, as you mentioned, even though it was 3 days of sitting, it was intense. You covered a lot of ground.
Yes.
Whether those of us were able to listen, we took it live here on our programming. Whether we got the rebroadcast as the media starts to go through it.
Yes.
Maybe the wider public hasn't had a chance to sit, and appreciate you taking time as we go through and give a preview of the 12 bits to be.
Well, each day was consisted of an average of 12-hour days, and certainly to your point, whilst it was rebroadcast by Radio Cayman, which again we're grateful for. Who has the time to sit through 12 hours of discussion? Citizens have busy lives, families, etc. So my goal is today, with your help, to provide, again, maybe a summary, brief highlights of some of the minor and not so minor changes that were made to specific pieces of legislation and why we believe they were necessary, and working towards why we also believe that they're designed to improve the lives of citizens, residents, and people who call Cayman home.
All right. Well, Councillor Austin Harris is our guest, and for those who are listening, if I perhaps misstate or misspeak this part, let me know. I mean, it's important for this country, it's people, voters, but citizens generally, to know what is happening within the Legislative Assembly.
Absolutely.
And whether we are budding politicians or whether we're just, citizens who have little or no interest in that, other than we exercise that right to go on election day and vote, but that we need to know what is happening and understand it.
Transparency is important.
Yeah, it is. Now, I know there were, many aspects. You said 12 bits. Want to start at A and go to Z?
Absolutely. Start at the beginning and work our way towards the end, I think, is the
I like the middle usually, but,
it's the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, so let's just kick off on that straight line.
There we go, sir. All right. Now, I know that there was a fair bit in any particular order, but let's start at A.
Yes.
All right.
Well, let's start at A, and again, there's no particular order to this other than the fact that we're going to start in areas where they involve legislative changes in ministries in which I have direct responsibility for. I understand these 2 key bits of legislation more than the rest, but I also have a conversational understanding of all of them because, again, it's my job. The first amendment came in the form of the Advanced Passenger Information Bill 2018. This bill, which is expected to be commenced into law shortly after it's been gazetted, will seek to strengthen and modernize both the national security framework and the ongoing border control partnerships that exist both regionally and internationally. As we have discussed multiple occasions, the vision of the government, the coalition government going forward, is to divide the responsibilities of immigration and share them both in terms of migrant control or labor issues, and separating them from the border security, border protection, national security framework. So the Advanced Passenger Bill is an important first step in building that foundation to achieve more careful border security. The Advanced Passenger Information Bill 2008 will facilitate the sharing and checking of advanced passenger information with global law enforcement. Therefore, going forward, all departing and arriving passengers into the Cayman Islands will be scrutinized against regional and international lists of known offenders with the view of identifying persons who may pose a risk to our country. And I give you a living, breathing example because it's in the headlines now. When you read the headlines of a deportee that somehow got through our checks and controls and ended up on our shores, obviously there's all sorts of reasons why these things happen. Human error, lack of appropriate information, lack of being able to access databases both regionally and internationally. That is going to be a thing of the past, and this is an important first step. We also see with the Advanced Passenger Information Bill, not only do we have an opportunity to secure our shores against those who may gain entry and therefore later pose a risk to it. But also it's a convenience factor. This bill represents an important major first step regionally, where a Caribbean island has now established a partnership with U.S. Customs and Border Control to pre-screen passengers coming from Miami to the Cayman Islands so that they don't have to go through all of the security checks, the lines and whatnot, pre-clearance, if you will. So it serves two masters. On the one hand, it protects national security, protects our borders, gives us information beforehand so we don't end up with a case of potentially having a fugitive in our midst, but also provides the convenience to the average air traveler of being able to be pre-cleared. Because, there are no red flags on their name, and that includes families with little kids, those perhaps with disabled children. I was at the airport, Owen Roberts Airport, when we rolled out the first trial of this, and, really the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is in the faces of the passengers who utilize this service, and they're all generally pleased with it. So that is the first bill that came before the Legislative Assembly, and that was the first bill that sought to make specific changes, again, to enhance the national security framework, enhancing relationships with global law enforcement, but also to improve efficiency of travel for both Caymanians and visitors.
Now, this would be specifically out of Miami, or would it be eventually?
Well, the initial pre-clearance is out of Miami. We hope to expand that program to the rest of the major hubs in which we partner with other airlines. We've already seen significant uptake in interest from the Americans and the Deltas and the JetBlues and whatnot, who all want to be able to offer the same service to their customer. So we believe that this was an important first step. That's the efficiency, the improved air travel side. But the bigger picture, in terms of the scrutinizing against regional and international databases, that will cover all of the passengers that arrive and depart into the Cayman Islands, whether you come from Miami or otherwise.
In a direct flight from that destination that arrives to Cayman.
That is correct.
Just for airlines, or would it extend to ocean?
It will also extend to the seaports as well. So the cruise lines will be required to provide passenger manifestos to our local law enforcement here for the same purpose.
Okay. Now, there was a talk about way back when fingerprinting of some sort.
Yes.
Will this be part of it? Will it supersede it? How does that fit in?
I believe it certainly will fit part and parcel with the long-term goals to incorporate biometrics, which include fingerprinting. There is a significant cost factor to the technology of fingerprinting. Whilst the government has aims, long-term aims, to include sort of those passport control kiosks, so you're no longer dealing with a person, but you're dealing with a computer. You put your passport up to it, it scans it, you stick your finger on there, it takes a picture of you, etc. All of the conveniences that you find in modern airports, both in America, the U.S., and Europe. That technology, that hard infrastructure, is very cost prohibitive at this time, but they are all linked together through that database. So now is an important first step that links our border control, customs, and law enforcement databases with that of regional and international databases. So now we're starting to share information and being able to access information, which is an important cog that will undoubtedly serve as the underlying element that will make these kiosks, fingerprinting and otherwise, possible. So I was asked this question just yesterday: when will we see fingerprinting and biometrics utilized? I don't think it's going to be an extended period of time, but we have to cut our cloth to fit our garment. And not all of the bells and whistles that we would otherwise like to have is something that is affordable at this time. But it is certainly on the radar, on the agenda, and part of the long-term plan.
Now, with that, Councillor Harris, as we look at this idea, we're seeing the CARICOM in the member states and information sharing, as you said, in relation to this attempt to make the borders secure.
Yes.
Will also extend, just want to clarify, to the US, the UK, all of the international law enforcement agencies as well, simultaneously?
Yes.
Okay. with that in mind, once the law is gazetted, would that be the next week, within this year? Is there a sort of timeline? Because it won't take effect until the law is gazetted.
It won't take effect until the law is gazetted. I don't have a timeline for that gazettal. What I suspect is maybe one of the contributing factors to the delay was, again, we made a number of amendments to a number of laws, and perhaps it may be the view that they're all being collated and will be, prepared at the same time. So we're not taking it, one law at a time. One law is not going to have priority over the next. I don't have a timeline for the gazettal, but certainly that is information that I can very easily access and get back to.
But it's expected to be imminent.
But it is expected to be imminent. It's not going to be a long or protracted delay, because otherwise that would defeat the purpose of the extensive work that we just recently concluded in the Legislative Assembly.
The objective is shared convenience for the passengers, but security for the territory as well.
That's correct.
All right. Well, again, once the public understands the importance of it, for us it'll be the same. Passport with information there. We go, and it's if you're okay, we're okay.
Yeah, exactly. You got nothing to fear. You're not a bad person. Then don't worry about it.
All right.
But we all want to feel safe while we travel. But again, we have a duty to make sure that those coming into our shores don't also pose a risk. We have enough problem of our homegrown issues. We don't need to import them either.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks very much. As we recognize, that famous voice of Mr. Austin Harris. Thanks for sharing with us. Right?
I'm cracking up a little bit. I think I've been talking a lot today, so if I sound like a toad, forgive me.
That's okay, man. It could be worse.
Good water here at Radio Cayman.
Yeah, boy. Good water, something.
That's right, that other clear liquid stuff, but we won't talk about it.
No, I keep that in my orange cup, man.
Your orange cup, that's right.
That's not a real solo.
Yeah.
Now, you also did some stuff with the immigration legislation as well, unless there was anything else on the advanced passenger.
No. Yeah,
I may come back to that in a bit, but we'll see. So the immigration amendment bill 2018 as well, right?
Yes. We made 5 distinct amendments to the immigration amendment, or in the immigration amendment bill, which once gazetted will form part of the immigration law. Some are major shifts in the way that we do business. Others are correcting what we oftentimes discover are the unintended consequences of previous laws and processes. You put in place a law to protect a certain group of individuals or to protect the government of the country, but in the operation of that law, we discover some unintended consequences that create an imbalance, and we have to go back and make those revisions. We had 5 such amendments under the Immigration Amendment Bill. The first, certainly your listeners will be familiar with. I've talked about it on this show before. I've talked about it on the morning show with Mr. O.C. The bill allows for the phased transfer of powers currently vested with the Chief Immigration Officer to the interim director of the newly established WORK, or Workforce Opportunities Residency Cayman. This is the agency that has oftentimes been referred to as the HR department that will be taking over the labor functions currently operated by the Immigration Department. Again, 70% of the Immigration Department's work is made up of migrant matters. The bill allows for the phased transfer of powers that are presently vested with the Chief Immigration Officer relevant to migrant application. Those are things such as work permits, permanent residence, and Cayman status, transferring those powers from the Chief Immigration Officer to the Interim Director of Work in the person of Mrs. Sharon Rolston and her team, and of course the team to be established from there. Whilst the law allows the Chief Immigration Officer in some cases to make decisions individually, as you know, with work permits, there are also boards and persons that come together to make this decision. So too will the operation be similar under work, but it is seeking to transfer those migrant application details over to work, who will be largely responsible for strategic oversight in labor. Now, this aspect raised, I don't know if it was a significant amount, but certainly some debate back and forth. And the large question is, why are we moving work permits, PR, and status over to work, the Workforce Opportunities and Residency Cayman? I think, in a word, it's about planning. previously, we have allowed our labor market to develop organically. You know, you need staff, you bring in your work permit holders, you have to advertise the job, but no one's checking to see how many Caymanians apply for the job. What are the skill sets of the work permit holders against what their application form says? Are we providing adequate opportunities for our own existing labor force before bringing in additional persons? By setting work permits, permanent residents, and status holders under the umbrella of work, it gives us a greater degree of planning our both current and labor market needs more strategically, as opposed to simply allowing it again to happen organically. And this is what we believe is an important cog in how work will achieve its mandate. Because when we consider what work's primary remit is, which is to better manage Cayman's overall labor market, which includes ensuring that there's adequate employment for Caymanians, then we see how all of these elements are an important part of achieving that overall goal. So that was the first amendment that came under the Immigration Amendment Bill. Secondly, the second amendment was to ensure that spouses of Caymanians are treated no less favorably than spouses of a permanent resident, specific for the purposes of naturalization under the British Nationality Act. This amendment, well, it represents a number of things. Number one, as I said on another program, normally when you think of the government and the opposition, you think of combative sort of atmosphere. But this amendment reflects the collaboration that exists between the government and the opposition, because this was a gap that was first identified by the member from Savannah, MLA Anthony Eden, which we acknowledged as being a legitimate gap that needed to be addressed. Spouses of Caymanians, when they marry, you get married to, not you, because obviously you have a beautiful Caymanian wife, and I'm not creating any strife in your family. But
no, but I
when
mean,
a Caymanian,
if you're promoting polygamy, I just can't.
Stop it. I don't know how your wife puts up with you. A Caymanian marries a foreign national; she becomes the spouse of a Caymanian. Previously, that now spouse of a Caymanian would be issued residency employment rights certificate, RERC, which is usually good for 7 years. The purpose of that 7-year period previously was to protect against marriages of convenience. But it was quickly discovered that the spouse of a PR holder, permanent resident, or Cayman status could achieve naturalization in far less time than the 7 years, which would otherwise be different than the spouse of a Caymanian. Obviously, we had to correct that imbalance. So the amendment seeks to bring more equality between the spouses of either a Caymanian or the spouse of a permanent resident, so that each can acquire naturalization within a timely manner, but certainly not one more or greater than the other.
Mr. Harris, when we come back from our news break, we can continue that, talk more about the amendments under the immigration.
Sure.
All right. I invite you to be a part of the discussion, so please stay tuned. When we come back, we continue speaking to Councillor Austin Harris.
The Cayman Contractors Association would like to urge all contractors to register for the Builders Law by completing the application process. The application is online at www.planning.gov.ky, or the form can be collected from the Planning Department. Do not miss the July 31st deadline and be unable to pull a permit for your job. Ensure your company is licensed, as the public wants to hire licensed contractors. Join the Cayman Contractors Association and stay current on code courses, training, and industry news. The Cayman Contractors Association, building a better Cayman.
The Advanced Automotive Chevrolet 30-day countdown is on. For the month of July, save big with once-in-a-year pricing on all remaining 2018 Chevrolet models. Advanced Automotive is making room for 2019 models with unbeatable pricing on remaining 2018 models. We are in the last 20 days. Come and see the 2018 Colorado pickup, packed with ingenious technology and superior fuel efficiency, and available with $1,000 cash back. 30-day countdown from Advanced Automotive. Visit the showroom on Owen Roberts Drive or visit AdvancedChevrolet.com today.
Optical Outlook is so wicked.
They're brilliant. Tremendous.
So hot.
They're awesome.
Yo, them cool.
They're sweet.
Just ice, mate.
I love them like cooked food.
Head to Optical Outlook and find many designer brands for men and women. Sun safety and eye health care never look so good. They'll be able to help you find the best fit for your face and budget. Call 746-2020 and book your eye exam today. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Not all insurance is created equal, but who has the time to shop around? Take the guesswork out of your insurance coverage with Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Let us match you with the best coverage to suit your needs at a price to suit your wallet. Plus, get superior customer service from dedicated claims professionals to ensure speedy claims processing. Get your insurance through Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
Give me freedom, give me fire.
Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside. Your home for all the World Cup action. Open daily from 10 a.m. with $70 bucket specials during all World Cup games and daily happy hour specials. Feel the passion, feel the fire, free the mind, and enjoy the game at the Cave Bar and Lounge, located on Frankstown Road in the Old Nico Norte.
When I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag.
Cave Bar and Lounge.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. Police say a 17-year-old male juvenile from Georgetown remains in custody today, suspected of attempted robbery in connection with last night's incident at Captain's Bakery on West Bay Road. Police say they also recovered a firearm, the 8th this year. In international news, U.S. President Donald Trump barreled into a NATO summit today with claims that a natural gas pipeline deal has left Germany, quote, totally controlled and, quote, captive to Russia, as he lobbed fresh complaints about allies' delinquent defense spending during the opening of what was expected to be a fraught two-day meeting. A firefighter is dead and at least 24 other people hurt after a natural gas explosion leveled 2 buildings in a Wisconsin community last night. Firefighters had arrived on the scene to investigate a gas leak in the Madison suburb of Sun Prairie. And hundreds of well-wishers turned out to catch a glimpse of Prince Harry and his wife, the former actress Meghan Markle, as they made their first overseas walkabout in Dublin today. Students and tourists flocked to the Irish capital's Trinity College, screaming and shouting to greet the royal couple, who were on their first official trip abroad as a married couple. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, the good company of Councillor and MLA Austin Harris, as we get a chance to go through the Legislative Assembly and see what transpired recently.
Yes.
Really, really appreciate it. And I think
really
many people
enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, man. Thanks very, very much.
Yes,
now, just before the break, thanks again for letting us, pause and update our people, the wonderful work our news department is doing. We talked about the equality treatment between the spouse of a Cayman and the spouse of a permanent resident.
Yes.
In terms of being able to get naturalized and the like. And normally they existed. Now they're both on the same playing field.
Yes.
Okay. Please continue to share with us.
So that was the second of 5 amendments to the Immigration Amendment Bill. The third amendment in the bill alters the eligibility period for specialist caregivers in order to provide some added relief for our elderly and disabled who are in need of specialist care. What that means is, in this country, well, first of all, this amendment also supports the Older Persons Law and the Older Persons Council that was legislated under the previous administration, so that we provide better for our elderly and our disabled in this country as they age. In this country, when we have an elderly parent or otherwise, we got 2 options. If the family is supportive and has the means to do so, we look after that family member at home, which, again, medical science will tell you that the best place for recovery, the best place for the elderly is in familiar surroundings at home. For those that can't, we have to commit them to residential facilities such as the Pines or otherwise. This amendment is specifically geared towards those specialist caregivers who deliver that specialist care to families of their elderly or disabled in their homes. Under the previous law, it stated that specialist caregivers were exempt in certain instances from the term limit, so that they didn't have to leave after year 8 or 9. But they had to apply for a special exemption. But that special exemption required that the specialist caregiver be employed with the elderly or disabled for as much as 3 years prior to the term limit being reached. It was determined very quickly that families particularly have grown very close to the specialist caregivers, some of whom have been employed for as little as a year with that family. But the focus here should not be on the length of time in which the specialist caregiver has been employed, but more importantly, are they delivering the service to the family that is acceptable, both in terms of the family and the time that it takes, but also are they skilled and cognizant in the medical needs of the elderly or disabled, that they're able to actually care for this individual? And the answer is always yes in these circumstances. So the amendment was cognizant of the perhaps gaps that may sometimes exist in reality, and therefore sought to reduce the period of employment that the law recognizes for persons who would otherwise be deemed exempt from term limits to, in exceptional cases, to those who may have been employed for up to a year. Again, the individuals still have to apply and still have to make their case as to why they believe this person is needed and necessary to care for our elderly and disabled. But previously, the law did not distinguish and allow that flexibility. So now that flexibility is in place, and again, is intended, not to subvert the immigration laws, but more importantly, if you have somebody that is providing a service specifically for the elderly and disabled, and it means that service can be provided in the comfort and safety of their own home, again, from the elderly or disabled's perspective, not anyone else's perspective, but from theirs, then we have an obligation to make their lives as easy as possible.
Now, is there any criteria that would determine a person being classified as a specialist caregiver?
Yes, there's very specific criteria in terms of the qualifications, the care in which they deliver, the relationship that they have, obviously, with the family that employs them, the relationship they have with the specific client, which is the elderly or the disabled, and as I mentioned also, their understanding. They don't have to be a doctor or a nurse, but certainly in some cases they are asked to administer medication, or at least supervise the administering of medication. They have to be cognizant in these fields as well. So there is a specific subset, if you will,
No, respectfully, this is just more than a person who's a caregiver, a nanny, or what was the other word we use? Helper.
Yeah, no. This is not a domestic helper. Mm-hmm. This is not a nanny for your kids. Mm-hmm. This is specific amended legislation to those persons who provide specialist care to our aging parents or our disabled parents or children, which again are commonplace in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, well, we sort of can respect that. I'd born and that need as well.
That's right. The Fourth Amendment, and this is, I'm thankful for this opportunity because I was on, I think, your show or OC's show prior to going to the Legislative Assembly where I was previewing what was coming up in the LA. And I got this part wrong on the air, and I acknowledge it. I realized I got it wrong, so I put in a call to say, listen, it's incorrect. Let me correct it with this information. But it goes to address what the media has coined these ghost Caymanians. Caymanian children born of permanent resident parents with Cayman status who had the right to be Caymanian by entitlement. But once they reach the age of 18, they're no longer considered a dependent, but an adult. Under the previous law, they had to apply for their right to be Caymanian by entitlement to be recognized. They also had a time limit. They had to first apply it once they've attained the age of 18, but had to do so before the age of 24. Not only was it a bit of an innocuous law that a lot of people didn't even know existed, but once it was tested, we found that persons, again, Caymanians for all intents and purposes, past the age of 24, had lived there their entire life, and this is the only home they'd ever known, were now not being allowed to meet the threshold. So what the government did was we removed the upper age limit altogether. What that basically means is that if you are a child born to a permanent resident or Cayman status holder, you were born in the Cayman Islands, once you've reached the age of 18, you can apply for the right to be Caymanian by entitlement at any age. So there's no age restriction. You have to do it before 24. You can anytime after the age of 18. So if you missed it, your child is now 27, maybe graduated college and wants to come back to Cayman, whatever the case may be, you can apply to the Cayman status and permanent residency board at any time to be recognized as the right to be Caymanian.
But once you're 18 or older.
Once you're 18 or older, because prior to that, you're considered a dependent to your parents, and therefore you're allowed. Your immigration status is different.
And you have to be born here.
You have to be born here, and you have to be born to at least one parent who's recognized as a Caymanian. That person holding a Cayman status,
or permanent resident,
or permanent resident.
Okay.
So this is something that again was deemed to be a problem, and we sought to address it.
An issue with respect to period of absence from the island. So the person at age 18 or 21 was born here to a permanent resident, has left the country for a period. Any issue with them being absent?
As long as the primary criteria is fulfilled, that they were born in the Cayman Islands and born to at least one Caymanian, as the law defines it, parent, there is no restriction. The other absence of restriction is that person, that individual who's applying for the right to be Caymanian by entitlement, is also not subject to the PR point system that would otherwise be involved in the permanent resident regime. So again, this amendment is sought to address a gap that had been considered an inconvenience and certainly was much talked about and provided an area of confusion and certainly fodder in the media. We acknowledge the gap existed. Certainly it was an unintended consequence, but it's something that we hope to address going forward. Fifth and finally,
could I ask, just respectfully,
sure.
As we speak to Council Stars, with respect to that Fourth Amendment there, just two things. There is some stuff in the media about the UK potential of creating a proposal that could affect legislation in its territories. How does that play into it? Could we speak to that to an extent?
We can't plan for legislative amendments on rumors. We have to wait to see what changes may be made to the British Nationality Act and work our way around it. Again, the change that existed previously and was just amended came about not for any doing of our own in local laws, but because there were changes to the British Nationality Act, and therefore our laws had to change in order to reflect it. We have no control over what the British do and their laws. And if they do make amendments to the British Nationality Act that may somehow otherwise negatively impact those who are entitled the right to be Caymanian by entitlement, then obviously we're going to have to adjust at that time, and I'm sure we will. But at this moment, there is no indication that that is imminent. But certainly, if it does come down the pipeline, we will do whatever we have to do as a government to ensuring quality for those who are considered our citizens.
Thanks. And also, Mr. Harris, there was some time ago some discussion in the public. We saw Caymanians go into immigration and having to get a stamp to show that they're Caymanian. Is that still required, or? Well,
the process is that once you reach the age of 18, at any age, you have to apply to have your right to be Caymanian recognized. It is a process. It's a form process. In some cases there may be a fee as little as $50, but no more. It is a process that has to.
So that still has to happen.
It still has to happen.
Okay, so just with great respect, I don't like to use me as an example, but since we put me on the table, just use me.
Yeah.
So, to the best of my knowledge, I was born in West Bay.
Yes.
I say Cayman by birth, West Bay by grace.
Yes.
Both of my parents were born in Cayman.
Yes.
Their parents, all the way back. My wife as well. Our children were born here. Our birth certificates, my birth certificate says, born in Cayman. Hers says the same. My parents says the same.
Yes.
Would my children now still have to do that? I was told no, and I was told yes. So
when they turn 18, they have to go through the process. The difference between children born to Caymanian parents is that there is no fee.
I don't care about the fee. That insulting part of many Caymanians, I must say I subscribe to it.
Yes.
Go to stand in line in immigration and get a stamp to say you're Caymanian. The passport, the birth certificate has little or no value. That still is an issue.
It is. It's a requirement. I mean, I have to put my son through it. He's 13 or going to be 13. It's necessary. It may seem like, again, an arduous and unnecessary process, but again, until we're a sovereign nation, there are limitations. Because now, once that Caymanian child, let's look at it. Let's look at it from the British standpoint. That Caymanian child, born of two Caymanian parents, is now recognized as a Caymanian or as a British Overseas Territory citizen. But they are also entitled to citizenship in the United Kingdom. Automatically. I can go, my son can go and apply for a British passport. They can live, work, and have their being in the United Kingdom. But there needs to be that proviso, if you will, recognition on the immigration status side.
But is there anything? I mean, we are not acknowledge the anomaly between the treatment of the spouse of the Caymanian and the spouse of the permanent resident. Just not to be argumentative, but to see how we can avoid potential and even more inflammatory and insulting situation to develop. Is there any way that it could be amended so that children of Caymanians, I gave my example as a case, yours, our passport then therefore has little or no value other than, whatever was the court said as it is, nothing more than a piece of paper.
Well, again, I mean, it's a question of how big of an inconvenience is it? You have a passport, you're born here, but you have to apply for that passport. Just because I'm Caymanian one Caymanian parent doesn't mean my passport is automatic. I still have to apply for it to get it.
Yeah.
So therefore, we're simply creating an application process to recognize what is, in many cases, a given fact. Do we do away with it all entirely? I don't know if that is logical. What would be a bigger concern to me, I would imagine, would be if the process itself was not straightforward and easy and took very little time at all. When we look at the changes to the labor regime, for example, we know more about our foreign national workers that come into this country than we do about our own Caymanians, because we have no tax base. So we don't gather information on locals as well as we gather information on foreign nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being able to have adequate factual evidence on the people who make up your society, and that includes your own people as well as everyone else.
Yeah.
And by allowing even one subset, Caymanians born and raised, to somehow automatically be given something, but not to be attached to any database, I just don't see the logic in that, because how do you plan?
Right. It's not even so much that. I was just thinking of two instances. First, the whole issue of the voter identification card. Presumably, if you have a voter ID or you're eligible, you're on the electors list, you must be Caymanian, presumably. So if you have the voter's ID, presumably then if they can establish that has not been fraudulently obtained.
Right.
So,
but that only deals with persons who are 18 years and above who are registered as voters. So it doesn't deal with my son.
Right. So if two individuals, let's just go in a case, biological man and woman, have produced an offspring, and documentation from registrar of birth say, yep, born at Georgetown Hospital, for example, say, and that's recorded there. These two individuals are, have birth certificates, have the voter's ID.
Yes.
Should that in and of itself not be significant and sufficient?
Well, the government is working towards the creation of a national ID system to that very same point. The voter's ID has been proposed as probably the most convenient card, if you will, that can be used for that purpose. But there are two problems that are identified. Number one, again, it only identifies those who are registered to vote, 17 years or older, or 18 years or older. So that leaves an entire subset of kids who are still in school that won't be issued that card. So that needs to be addressed. And the other reasons are some of the security features contained on the existing voter ID card are not sufficient to serve as a national identity. But I take your point and I see where you're going. And I believe it is possible that once we arrive at that national ID, that perhaps that might be a means of eliminating this need for Caymanians born of Caymanian parents to go through this process.
Not to belabor, but the final point. Dr. Steve Myfield just yesterday in the program said, and he's been practicing 1,000 years or so.
At least.
Right. And he says he's going to renew now his practicing certificate. And he's been asked to show that he's Caymanian.
Yes.
Presumably, he has a birth certificate. Presumably, he has a passport of some sort. Presumably, he has a voter's ID.
Yes.
And yet, him. Now I go back to my own situation that is not unlike many others, where both parents are Caymanian, of Caymanian parents, and whose children consciously, deliberately, thankfully, safely were birthed here.
Yes.
Now having to go and stand in line and get a stamp to say they're Caymanian.
In a perfect world, Duane, I would take your point.
Yeah.
If the citizens of this country only came from Caymanian mother and father, then this discussion would be a moot one. But we do not have a society that is made up of that, of children, next generation that come from, a Caymanian born and bred versus a Caymanian who, arrived at it through Cayman status.
Yes, sir. No,
there are different categories of it. So
it's not even that, sir. It's the case. Anyway.
It's just the inconvenience of standing in line.
No,
is that what bugs
it's the insulting part of that. And but you know what? I think the answer is before us. I think the lack of action is perhaps the thing. But anyway.
Well, there's no lack of action.
Part of the public.
The lack of action on the public, and I forgive the public. The lack of action on the public's part is based on and this is not intended in a bad way, ignorance to the requirement of the law. Most people, including myself, prior to the discussion started, didn't realize that this had to happen.
Specifically, lack of part of the public to ensure that those elected, past and present, address this issue, right?
Yes.
Because, honestly, it for any Caymanian not to be insulted by that is...
Yes, I understand the insult, but again, those same Caymanians have to understand that we have to make decisions based on empirical information. And if we have no tax base, how does the government, let's use it as an example for the NWDA.
Yeah.
How does the government, create policies to ensure that, persons, every Caymanian is employed if they don't know that A, this Caymanian is unemployed, that B, this Caymanian went to high school or graduated or not, C, went to tertiary education, graduated or not, D, if it's not aware of what the skill sets, the job experience, what these Caymanians do, so that when the work permit board gets an application for a server or an auto mechanic, what information are they being able to access to compare apples to apples?
But it's not even that.
There is none.
No, fair enough, not that.
So it's about, in my mind, it's about having the empirical information on hand so that you know as much about your local population as you do about your migrant population. I take on board the inconvenience factor. And again, I accept that perhaps the national ID, once it is arrived at,
but it doesn't
could very well
issue now,
serve that purpose. Yeah. It doesn't address the issue now, sir, but certainly, what is being done now is a step towards the solution rather than simply leaving it as ghost Caymanians with no rights whatsoever. You missed the boat at 24, start all over at square one.
But we address those individuals, but we have not addressed the small, I think it's like 15 of us. It can't be that many Caymanians that fair, right? The small number of people that would fall in the category that I refer, who has a mom and a daddy that were born here, of mamas and daddies that were born here, of mamas and daddies that were born here, physically born here, all of whom would still, if they're alive, have birth certificates, passports, and a voter IDs. We're saying, right, and deliberately, we're saying that something is fundamentally wrong with the passport, the voter's ID, that has to be suspect. Otherwise, that in itself must be sufficient evidence to say, well, these children are Caymanians.
Right.
If not, then something's wrong. But I won't be, only because you're a gifted and skilled orator and debater, that I would like that. But that is something that is, if there's anything that is insulting, it has to be done.
Listen, I'm a Caymanian, so I accept to an extent that reasoning, or that line of thinking. I really do. What I can say is that the government is cognizant that it is upsetting, insulting, whether it be a small percentage or a large percentage of Caymanians. Certainly, as a Caymanian, it is not the intention. It is what we have and what we have to deal with. We're trying to find solutions to remove that inconvenience, but also satisfy our needs to be able to know who lives and walks and has their being amongst us, whether they are, again, son of the soils or those, are son of persons who chose to make Cayman their home. And as we develop our population and our economy, the need for hard evidence as opposed to colloquial or, well, you're from West Bay, you sound like you're the West Bay, so you must be Caymanian.
No, not even that.
Again, loosely translated, it's the real world, and we have to work within these real world realities.
Appreciate it, sir. And I know there's a final amendment before we go to the break. Thank you so much for letting us do, and I appreciate you engaging for a second. But
sure.
The Fifth Amendment for that immigration bill?
Yeah, the Fifth Amendment to the Immigration Amendment Bill allows for the creation of a separate appellate tribunal that deals with appeals from the refusal of asylum in the Cayman Islands. As it exists right now, the Chief Immigration Officer can decide on applications for asylum made by refugees. Persons coming to the island seeking, saying, I'm an asylum seeker. Some are approved, others are not. For those who are not approved, there previously did not exist a pathway or an avenue in which those persons who were denied asylum can, again, have recourse. So the Fifth and Final Amendment establishes that avenue for the creation of an asylum appeals tribunal to specifically hear those appeals that have been denied by the Chief Immigration Officer, with the view of potentially maybe all of the facts weren't presented to the Chief Immigration Officer or otherwise. Maybe there are distinguishing characteristics or otherwise that weren't considered. It creates a pathway for even those who were denied to appeal that process, much like it exists for everything in the Cayman Islands. You don't get a work permit, you can appeal it. You don't get a PR, you can appeal it. If you don't get a business license, you can have it appealed to a higher court or a higher body. Likewise, we didn't have that available for asylum seekers, and that is also more in keeping with global international human rights as well. So that is the Fifth Amendment to the Immigration Amendment Bill.
I think we have a chance for a call. Mr. Fox is speaking to Councillor Austin Harris. Good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you doing today, Mr. Ebanks?
Very well, sir. And yourself?
Feeling a little better today. I want to say hello to Mr. Austin Harris. How are you doing, Mr. Austin?
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for your call.
Yeah, man. It's good to hear you back on radio, and I know you continue to do good work for your community.
Thank you, sir. I do try.
Yeah, man, of course. No problem. Now, our passports. To apply for a Cayman Islands passport, we can fill out the form, pay the necessary fees, and that's now being processed in England.
Mm-hmm.
My question, Mr. Harris, is once the United Kingdom complete Brexit, which next year by this time, the UK would have exited the European Union because it happens in 9 months' time. Brexit would have happened. How is that going to affect us with our passports? Because the Cayman passport is a British passport with the Cayman Islands written on the bottom,
yes,
whereas the UK passport is British passport, European Union. All that would change, obviously,
yes,
once Brexit goes through.
Yes.
What is your perspective of Cayman strengthening ties with CARICOM? We just recently had the 39th annual Head of State CARICOM in Montego Bay last week.
Mm-hmm.
How do we move forward? I want your opinion
yes,
and your vision then.
Sure.
And will we eventually become independent, and will we strengthen ties with CARICOM? And the NWDA has information on all persons who apply through them, Caymanian and foreign national alike. So a lot of information, but this national ID that's coming about, I think that's a good thing. I really, really do.
Sure.
And like I say no more now, I await your responses, sir. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
Well, first of all, concerning Brexit, we have to figure out first what the terms of Brexit will be, because those goalposts continue to shift. There have been talks about whether it's going to be a soft Brexit or a hard Brexit. I think at this point in time, nobody knows what kind of Brexit will be. Theresa May and her government have proposed a number of options, which as recently as last week were all rejected by the European Union. So it's sort of back to the drawing board. So it's a little difficult to answer the question how our passport system will change post-Brexit until Brexit has actually happened and the United Kingdom has actually made their exit from the European Union. We don't know what those terms will be, so obviously it's a bit of a wait-and-see game. I do believe that part of the reasons why I think we had the passports which were formerly printed in the Cayman Islands, then moved to the United Kingdom, were based on the ability to cross-reference those persons applying for passports against global and regional databases, which, again, up until the Advanced Passenger Information Bill, the Cayman Islands were greatly restricted in terms of, the number of databases that we could cover and had access to. So it was felt that process would have better been achieved in this now post 9/11 world by having it processed in the United Kingdom because of their access to information databases. I believe that once we have proven that now we have the ability to share that information for our own border control, national security framework concerns, that there may be a case made that as that partnership blossoms, if you will, and the operation is tested, we may have an opportunity to return it to Cayman. I don't know this. This is entirely my opinion. Certainly I would like to see that happen because I also believe it's an inconvenience to have your own Cayman passports printed somewhere else. But it's a larger question of geopolitics. It's a larger question that, in truth, is above my pay grade. These are conversations that happen at premier level conversations. Would I like to see it brought back? Yes. Do I believe we have the ability to have that service brought back to us, given the amendments that were just made and the direction that we're taking by splitting immigration? Yes, I do believe we have all of the makings to have that simple process returned to Cayman. But again, we aren't sovereign. So we obviously have a relationship with the Crown, the governing country, the United Kingdom. And in some cases, we have shared, not quite yet devolved authorities. So we're going to have to work on that. But I also believe that the ongoing constitutional talks, which are also still very live, also presents a possibility that we can have that flexibility in terms of charting our own course. And that may involve passports. It may not. I don't know that at this time. But certainly to the caller's overarching question, how will that change post-Brexit? Well, until Brexit happens and the exit happens, we really don't know what those changes will include.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to continue hearing more about what transpired in the Legislative Assembly and always get the good input in Council of MLA and Council Austin Harris. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise its valuable customers that planned sewerage infrastructure works will occur in the vicinity of the intersection of North Church Street and West Bay Road from approximately 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, the 15th of July, 2018. Works will occur between the location of the newly approved boutique hotel opposite Kirk Market on North Church Street and an existing manhole opposite Baytown Plaza on West Bay Road. During this time, it will be necessary to keep one lane of traffic closed at all times. Northbound traffic will continue to have access to West Bay via West Bay Road and North Church Street, but southbound traffic will be diverted around the work area via Eastern Avenue and Bodden Road. Traffic signs will be posted in the general vicinity, and all motorists are asked to drive with caution to ensure their own safety as well as that of the Water Authority staff. The Water Authority appreciates the patience and understanding of the motoring public as it upgrades its wastewater infrastructure to better serve its customers and apologizes for any inconvenience this may cause.
Wow, looks good. What is that?
Chicken chair.
What did you just say to me?
Chicken chair.
I am not a chicken.
Whoa! I said chicken share. It's from KFC. Bucket of 12 hot wings, 6 pieces of chicken, or 8 tenders. KFC chicken share. Just $12 each.
Oh.
Want some chicken, tenders, or hot wings?
You're sharing your chicken share with me? The new chicken share from KFC. Just $12 each. And it's finger-licking good. Dine at KFC Baytown Plaza, KFC Shedden Road, or KFC at the Strand.
I'm Ray Singh.
Hey, this is DJ Len.
Dion Anglin.
Stay in the know with the latest BBC World Cup updates during the 6 p.m. Information Hour, including the latest results, reactions, and expert match predictions of World Cup action from Russia. Radio Cayman's BBC World Updates, brought to you by Merengue Town. Watch all of the World Cup matches at Merengue Town. It's time to feel the rhythm, time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
King Sports Center's Art of Fun Summer Camp is back from July 3rd to August 3rd. Now in its 14th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids aged 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft, dance, singing, and more. Your child can stay cool while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, email kings.brebanks@gmail.com. That's kings.brebanks@gmail.com. Or call 946-KING, like King's Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram, or call 946-5464. King's Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Kia Soul passes it to Kia Sportage. Sportage makes a stylish move over to the sleek Optima. Optima then flicks it across to the 7-seat Sorrento. Sorrento heads it. Goal! Kia!
It's time to score with the entire 2018 Kia lineup at GT Motors. Get up to $3,000 cash back. The first 50 customers will score a World Cup replica football and mascot. Hurry, it's the best thing that's happened to car buyers all year. The 2018 Kia clearance sale, only at GT Motors on Godfrey Nixon Way. Kia, driving football fever.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Give me freedom, give me
me fire.
Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside. Your home for all the World Cup action. Open daily from 10 a.m. with $70 bucket specials during all World Cup games and daily happy hour specials. Feel the passion, feel the fire, free the mind, and enjoy the game at the Cave Bar and Lounge, located on Frankstown Road in the Old Nico Norte.
When I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag. So wave your flag.
Cave Bar and Lounge.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today, and thanks for joining us as we have good company of MLA and Councillor Austin Harris as we talk about what transpired in the Legislative Assembly. We have a couple of calls online, certainly one in the queue. I don't know, could be lunch. Let's check it out.
Sure, absolutely.
Good afternoon. Welcome, you're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Not bad.
Good to hear from you, my friend.
Good afternoon to you, my friend.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty good.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm listening to the conversation, and I don't think a national ID is going to solve what the core issue is with the proving whether one is entitled to be called a Caymanian or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's a separate issue,
yes,
right? A national ID will consolidate documents that one might need for various types of evidence of something, but the process will still remain. I think as we speak about these things, the Caymanian people need to really sit down and focus on why exactly it is that we have this issue, right? And when we think about Caymanian passport, well, the more technically correct way of looking at it is the UK's passport for the people in the Cayman Islands, not the Cayman Islands passport, right? That's just the name, the title.
It's true.
Right? So, I mean, I could open a business and I could call it the best burgers in the entire Cayman Islands.
Right.
That don't make it true. That's what it's called.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we need to really sit down and ask ourselves, do we like the idea of being under the UK in this way? What is it that we want to change? Because I think, this is a lot of inconveniences for us. It has tremendous detrimental impact on our daily functioning, the efficiency of getting things done, not to mention making our history just downright complicated. But having said that, right, with the national ID, we're going to introduce to the Cayman Islands along with that, whether we like it or not. It's just a byproduct of the reality of making such a step, is identity theft. And when you bring that into the equation, then the question is going to be, if somebody's identity is stolen and government is expecting for people to be able to interact with it electronically, will that person's interaction with the government be shut down for how long until their identity is straightened out? Or how quickly can someone's identity be rectified if it's stolen? And these are things that I've spoken about before in public when the idea of e-government started surfacing. And I'm sure you remember some of the conversations in which I was asking the persons who were responsible, who's going to control the private keys to the encryption of the data that secures this information and processes. And because if we let a third party, specifically a specific authority, just commercial business, sometimes those companies do not have security as its main feature. has a sustained feature is a blend of security and affordability, which means, in another way of saying, a compromise of security. And when your identity is compromised and you can't interact with government, because how can government tell whether it's really me or someone who's masquerading as me?
Yes.
These are things that have to be thought out clear. I'm not arguing against it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying that if you're going to make that step,
yes.
I'm going to want you to convince me.
Absolutely.
That and not by telling me, yeah, we've taken all the steps. Just trust me. That's not how security works.
Mm.
Obscurity is not security. Security is when you can reveal it to the public, but it's so robust that it doesn't matter.
Right.
But because it's only a matter of
they
time.
Can't use that information against you.
Right. And somebody shouldn't try to tell me it can't be done. It's being done around the world all the time.
Sure.
By people who take security seriously.
Sure.
And so I would just like to I'd like to encourage you to follow up and see exactly what is being proposed there, because
yes,
I would hate for us to. I mean, the company. What's the country that we looked at? I can't remember the country right now.
You mean
Europe.
In Eastern Europe?
Yes. What is it called again?
When they asked Slovenia? No.
Yes, Estonia.
Estonia, yeah.
Yes,
right.
Yes, the Estonia model.
A little while back, it turned out that the cards that they were using came from a company that was supposedly secure, and it wasn't. It was a massive, massive breach in their entire system. Now, I personally don't want us to adopt a model. I don't think we need that kind of system. Personally, I don't think we need that. And I would hate for us to adopt a model that causes us to be reliant on another country for our security.
Yes.
That, to me, sounds really stupid.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be derogatory. I'm not trying to put anyone down. I'm just telling you my true feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, it
how
concerns
you feel
me.
about it. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I just stop at those thoughts for right now. But I agree with you. I want the passport process to be handled back in Cayman.
Yes.
And I think we should be moving in a direction in which we stand on our feet more than being at the mercy of crazy politicians up in the UK.
Sure, or propped up by crazy politicians in the UK. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, take care.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
I just want to be able to respond to the rather
sir.
comprehensive comments raised by Mr. Denny, and he's absolutely correct. In the first instance, the whole national ID system is intended to be more convenient, whether it be for the employment aspect, but more and more in everyday life, Caymanians are being asked to prove that they're Caymanian. How do you achieve that in the simplest, most convenient way for the end user, the Caymanians? And we're obviously still working on it, looking at options. The issue of e-commerce and a digital ID also. If we're going to enter the 21st or soon to be 22nd century, we're behind the eight ball already on this. So we have to find the solution. I'm grateful to people like Ian Tibbetts out of the Cabinet Office, who has been working diligently on this, going as far. I mean, the whole notion of e-commerce first raised its head in the 05-09 administration, and I can assure the general public and the last caller also that we haven't dropped the ball. The conversation has continued, but to the caller's point, the issues of how do you maintain confidentiality when you consider that a digital ID won't just be where you're from, but it'll have all of your other pertinent and otherwise considered very private information contained on it. Once we can have that portal or platform, certainly it'll make life easier when we can, go pay our CUC bill online, pay our flow bill online, pay whatever online, make applications online, don't have to go into a single store or join a single queue or ever stand in line ever again. That is a modern society, if we can get there. But how do we get there while securing that information? Every one of the points that Mr. Warren raised are legitimate challenges that the government is tasked with working to overcome. Certainly, I can't speak to the technical nature of what is being looked at. I do know that for a long time we were looking at the Estonia model for a national ID, but to the caller's point, there are better platforms that provide even greater security for the end user that we should also be considering. And I can tell you from having a conversation with Mr. Tibbetts that this is being looked at. It is rather timely, though, that Mr. Warren would make this call because Mr. Tibbetts has been trying to have a meeting with me for the better part of 2 weeks to provide an update. And because I've been challenged with the Legislative Assembly and the various meetings and the work thereafter, that I simply have not had the time for that meeting. But Mr. Warren's call, again, highlights to me the need to make the time, because if you don't make time, you'll never have time.
That is...
So hopefully I'll have a chance to chat with Mr. Tibbetts, and the next time we get together, Sterling, I will be in a better position to provide more salient facts that can speak to where we are now.
He's a great resource if he's available.
He certainly is.
Yeah,
he certainly is.
Him,
but he's a technocrat, so you got to speak a certain language. You got to be able to follow him around the playing field.
Yeah, he's smart one.
Without a doubt, that is not in contention. An incredibly bright young man. And very, I think, well suited for the task he and his team are tasked with, and that is coming up with a solution, whether it be to the national ID, but also in the bigger picture, that digital ID that will form part of our e-commerce solution going forward.
All right, I appreciate it, and always welcome the opportunity to be updated, Mr. Harris. Now, as you're going through, other legislation was touched and amended and updated, as it were. So.
Yes, we made some minor adjustments to the utility sector laws in order to recognize the newly implemented Public Authorities Law. The 5 utility sector laws that were amended include the Utility Regulation and Competition Amendment Bill, the Electricity Sector Regulation Amendment Bill, the Water Sector Regulation Amendment Bill, the Water Authority Amendment Bill, and the Information and Communications Technology Amendment Bill. These laws were pretty much laws or entities unto themselves until the Public Authorities Law took effect. The Public Authorities Law seeks to set a consistent criteria across all public authority statutory companies or government-owned companies. And therefore, the laws themselves had to be minor provisional changes to recognize the authority that when all is in doubt, the Public Authorities Law is the paramount law that supersedes all of these sector laws. So we had to make some legalese provisional changes in order to remove certain conflicts to those provisions. The other amendment to these sector laws validated the work of the boards who may not have been previously structured in accordance with the Public Authorities Law, again, just to make sure that both on the operational level and at the management level of these laws is consistent with provisions outlined in the Public Authorities Law, and that is, again, to protect the interest of the end user, the end consumer, the client. We also updated the Utility and Regulation and Competition Amendment Bill to make clear the role of the board and the role of the CEO, as is the case in most public authorities, statutory authorities, government-owned companies. The board has the authority to hire and direct the CEO. The CEO, in turn, has the responsibility and authority to hire and direct their sector leaders. That wasn't made clear in the IRC law and needed to be, again, made crystal clear, and that was accomplished. And finally, we made amendments to the Water Sector Regulation Law to allow appeals of disputes to be appealed to the Grand Court. So you take a decision and the regulator rules against you. Previously, there was no avenue in which to appeal that decision of a regulator. Now we created, again, the pathway for those extreme circumstances where decisions can be appealed to a higher court, again, to create fairness and equity. We acknowledge that no one's perfect, but just to make sure that industry is protected, but at the same token, so too are the key stakeholders of that industry, and that is, of course, the consumers, the clients, the citizens, the people who are buying and using these products. So those were the minor amendments made to the sector laws. Other minor amendments included an amendment to the Cadet Corps law. In this instance, I guess the best analogy I can give you is whether you serve on a board or whether you're the premier, there are term limits to certain key positions, chairmen, deputy chairmen, and members. It was determined that it was necessary to remove the existing term limit for the position of chairman on the Cadet Corps, largely because it's difficult to find the qualified personnel that will run an organization like the Cadet Corps as part of the overall larger, bigger picture vision that Cadet Corps was established for. There are challenges in terms of how well chairmen work with CEOs and the overall operation of in this case, the Cadet Corps. When something is working and working well, you want to try wherever is possible to remove any hindrances or stumbling blocks that might take us backwards as opposed to forward. And in the discussions involving this minor change, it was determined that it was necessary to remove those term limits for the position of chairman of the Cadet Corps Committee, and that's what this amendment reflected. There were changes brought to the Criminal Procedure Code under the Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Bill 2018, as well as the Conditional Release Amendment Bill 2018. These were bills brought by the Honorable Attorney General. They involve a great deal of legalese, so if you can be patient with me as I try to walk through it. I'm not as conversationally comfortable with these areas because I simply don't have the legal background, but I will attempt it nonetheless. The amendments to the Criminal Procedure Code sought to bring about consistency in procedures observed both in summary court and grand court. And an example, I suppose, of this is on whether or not a Crown has failed or succeeded to prove their case, or prima facie case. If the Crown, for example, has failed to produce sufficient evidence to establish what is called a prima facie case, then the accused must be acquitted at that stage, requiring him to not have to give evidence on his behalf. Certainly is a principle that is applied at the Grand Court level, but under the previous law did not exist under the summary court level. The amendment seeks to make those two courts, one lower and a higher court, have consistent operational procedures. Likewise, if the Crown has, in fact, led such evidence to satisfy that a prima facie test has been achieved and the defendant is called to defend him or herself, but a judge is still satisfied based on the evidence that a case has been made, then that defendant will then be considered guilty of an offense. Again, these consistencies are to make what happens in Grand Court consistent with what happens in summary court. Another example is a person is convicted of a serious crime, murder, rape, abduction, otherwise. Those crimes would be heard in Grand Court. But perhaps, and in many cases this happens, in the process of executing those higher crimes, the person also commits an offense that would be heard in the summary court, such as common assault. Under the previous law, those charges would have to take place in two separate courts, so two separate trials for the same individual. The amendment sought to achieve that in cases of murder, that there are grand court matters, but also summary court matters, that the summary matters can be held in the grand court so that there's one trial of one individual as opposed to two trials. Again,
procedural.
Trying to make exactly broader procedural efficiency. We talk about, again, the limitation of court space. So we want to be able to work with the challenges that we have, given the infrastructure limitations that we have, in order to address those challenges that take place within the court itself.
Okay. Now, when we come back from our news break, Mr. Harris, can we invite you to talk about the conditional release? I mean, Mr. You alluded to earlier.
Yes.
As we continue our discussion, truly appreciate the company and the information being shared by Councillor Austin Harris.
Cayman National Bank has been proudly serving the Cayman community for over 40 years. With over 7 customer service centers and ATMs located throughout Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman, Cayman National makes banking easy. Whether you're out dining, shopping, or playing, we invite you to visit our customer service center, conveniently situated at Camana Bay, which offers full-service banking along with ample parking. I invite you to visit us at Camana Bay, where banking blossoms.
Give me fire.
Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside. Your home for all the World Cup action. Open daily from 10 a.m. with $70 bucket specials during all World Cup games and daily happy hour specials. Feel the passion, feel the fire, free the mind, and enjoy the game at the Cave Bar and Lounge, located on Frankstown Road in the Old Nico Norte.
When I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag. So wave your flag.
Cave Bar and Lounge.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
When it comes to designing a kitchen or a bath, functionality and style should be at the center of your design. Declutter, improve lighting, change cabinets, increase storage, and show your style with the help from experts at Brand Source Home Gallery. Save 20% on the finest cabinets and fixtures this July for Kitchen and Bath Month at Brand Source. The design team can help create the perfect personal spa retreat and help design your functional kitchen, whether designing from scratch or renovating your home. Stop by Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, to save 20% on kitchen and bath cabinets and fixtures.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
I am so glad school is out.
We don't have to wake up early. We can sleep until we are hungry.
Don't have to rush out the house every morning for 2 whole months.
Unless you get up an hour earlier, you are going to miss Teen Summit.
This Wednesday, we sit down with some delegates from Teen Summit 18. Thrive.
Teen Summit last year was so late, it was worth getting up early for.
So join us this Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m.
Right here on Radio Cayman 189.9 FM.
Or listen live on the web at www.radiocayman.gov.ky and click the Listen Live button on Radio Cayman 1 and YouFlex, a program for all people by young people. YouFlex, more than talk.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
Police issued more than 400 tickets for speeding and excessive tint on vehicles last month. They say they also made 24 DUI arrests in June and 13 as of July 10th. In international headlines, a pharmaceutical company urged a judge to block the use of one of its drugs to execute a 2-time killer today, saying the state of Nevada obtained the product through subterfuge for unapproved purposes. Alvagen's objections, aimed at a hearing that unfolded less than 11 hours before Scott Raymond Dozier was to be put to death with a 3-drug injection injection never before tried in the U.S. threatened to put the execution on hold. Southwest Airlines says it will stop serving peanuts on its flights starting August 1st. The airline says it wants to ensure the best onboard experience for everyone, especially customers with peanut-related allergies. And stone tools recovered from an excavation in China suggest our evolutionary forerunners trekked out of Africa earlier than thought. Until now, the oldest evidence of human-like creatures outside Africa came from 1.8 million-year-old artifacts and skulls. But the new find pushes that back by at least 250,000 years. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And thanks so much for joining us. And certainly, I say this each time, but I really, really mean it. The opportunity to speak with our elected members of the Legislative Assembly, and when we get a chance to hear what's going to happen and then hear what did happen, I try to pay attention. I might actually remember it, but if not, at least can't say what wasn't told, right?
That's right.
MLA Councillor Austin Harris gives us the updates. So you will share with us now the amendments to what was the Conditional Release Amendment Bill?
Yes, the Conditional Release Amendment Bill 2018. Two minor amendments, one maybe not so minor, but certainly legitimate, I think, in the wider public's reasoning. The bill provided the power to the board to reconsider a decision to release a prisoner on temporary license. Again, the release on temporary license provisions means that, once an individual has served 60% of their sentence and they meet certain criteria set by the prison director and otherwise, they can be released on temporary license as a form of reintegration. And it is a program that I'm very supportive of because we have to be able to allow for reintegration and allow for rehabilitation. I'm a big believer in second chances, third chances if necessary, because persons can change. But there are also circumstances where that release has been granted, but there are extenuating circumstances that warrant a second look that previously did not allow a decision to release to be reviewed and perhaps even retracted. Now, under the amendment, it empowers the board to reconsider those decisions to release. And again, there's nothing malicious in this, but is entirely from the standpoint of creating opportunities for offenders to be reintegrated, but at the same context, taking public safety into account as well. There may be good reasons why persons, are not quite ready to re-enter civilized society, and those reasons, they're numerous from time to time. I don't know them all, but certainly there are extenuating factors that now a board is empowered to be able to take a second look. It also provides the board with the ability to appoint a temporary chairperson to attend meetings. This is a problem not unique to the Conditional Release Board or any other board. You have boards that have chairmen, deputy chairmen, and members. But sometimes, due to, again, no fault of anyone else's, these are private citizens doing their civic duty, they aren't able to attend meetings. Under the Conditional Release Board criteria, you couldn't appoint a chairperson to attend a specific meeting. The meeting would have to be rescheduled, canceled, rescheduled, and another meeting date scheduled. That takes up time, and it also creates a backlog. So as long as there is a deputy chairman and members, and there are sufficient numbers to form a quorum, then the members can now be authorized to, amongst themselves, appoint a chairperson to preside over that specific meeting so that there is no delay. And that was also an amendment outlined under the Conditional Release Amendment Bill. The less than minor change was to provide the provision of whole life tariffs to be applied to persons who are guilty of significant offenses, such as murdering 2 or more people, such as rape, such as premeditation involved in that murder, such as persons who had to be abducted prior to being murdered or raped or otherwise. These are considered serious Category A offenses. And persons convicted in these offenses will be required to serve their whole sentence. So the 60% release on temporary license does not apply to those individuals. And that was included in the amendment, again, to separate, if you will, that not every prisoner, if you will qualify or will be enabled to qualify for the release on temporary license. And again, I think there are legitimate and logical reasons for it that are easily understood by the public themselves. So whole life simply means a prisoner will not be eligible for parole, but will instead have to serve their entire penalty.
So in relation to murder, that would be murder of 2 people or more.
2 people or more. Rape, where there's a degree of premeditation involved in that murder. It wasn't a matter of self-defense, an argument that led to a death. An abduction of an individual, which also suggests premeditation, pre-planning. Your intent was to kill.
And rape is specifically mentioned in there as well.
Rape is mentioned in it, as well as crimes of either a sexual or sadistic conduct. The murder of a child, murder to advance political agendas is included in that. I don't ever imagine that we've ever had a situation like that, but who knows? A murder that has racial motives or ideological motives attached to it. These are what the courts define as Category A offenses.
Mr. Before we go to the phones, that section that they're talking about to advancing political or ideological motives, coups and the like. We see the history throughout the world, but political, some would say ideological. There's a part of an emerging democracy, advancing, constitutional and societally.
Yes.
Why did the LA feel it necessary to include those 2 aspects, the political and ideological advances?
I can only assume, Sterling, that we live in an ever-changing world, and we are responsible for planning for both the here and now, as well as the foreseeable future. But whenever possible, we also put in place for the future that can be seen. As our population grows, as our political fortunes change, I don't know. But as you pointed out, it is not unheard of. We've had a coup, though it was a bloodless coup. It was a changing of the guard. It was considered a vote of no confidence, and it was done all very civilized. In other countries, that's not the case. Sometimes political leaders lose their life in order to gain position. I'm not of the belief that in the Cayman Islands we'll ever arrive at that point. But I believe that this amendment and those wordings were just simply put in there to make sure we cover all of the possible, feasible, no matter how remote they may be in the Cayman Islands context. It was to cover all of the bases and came at the guidance of our legal department, who we trust.
We do have a call online, sir, as we speak to Councillor and MLA Austin Harris. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm not sure if I'll be off track or not, but I heard him saying something about, if you murder 2 people or more. What about when 2 people abduct somebody, rape them, murder them, and burn them?
Yes. Those would be persons that would certainly not be eligible parole, but would be required to serve their entire length of their sentence.
Yeah, but it sounds like how the law was before. They have the right to appeal to that after spending 30 years. It's possible to them being released. They need to burn them up 6 times and chop them up and everything else. That's how I feel about them.
Certainly.
They shouldn't spend time in jail.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else, ma'am?
No,
thank you. To that caller's point then, sir, once this law is in effect, does it, from that point going forward, or does it apply to everything to date? So if you're in prison now, you fall subject to the law, or is it only after the law comes into effect, and these crimes and offences occur?
That's a good question in terms of whether they're retroactive or not. I don't have that answer. I would suspect, because of the category of the offense that we're referring to, that it would be considered retroactive, but I don't know that as a fact. So I won't. I
won't ask you. Yeah, okay.
But I will make a note here, and I will ask the Attorney General, to clarify that. And once I have the information, I'll get back to you.
Thank you. You've always been diligent in doing that, sir, and appreciate. As a call to reference, as we're speaking to Emily and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. I was enjoying this afternoon, but it really is true. Time goes fast when
that's why when you're having fun, doesn't it?
And we didn't have anything to eat or drink, man. I mean, no coffee, no tea.
Well, maybe. I mean, because we have the traffic amendments, we have the music and dancing amendments and liquor licensing amendments. Maybe in the time that we do have left, we can focus on the traffic amendments because they touch more people than some of the other areas. And
we can come back to them.
We can come back to them at another time. If there's a specific question related to them, we can address them. We made significant amendments to the Traffic Amendment Bill 2018. This law, a little background, has witnessed some 16 revisions since it was first enacted in 1973. But it's been over 7 years since it's experienced any extensive review. The amendments reflect really the goal of arriving at a sophisticated law that assists our modern and growing society with the mantra, basically making our citizens' lives better. That's the goal. That's the ethos or the thinking that we have at top of mind before we go into making amendments specific to the traffic law itself. So what are some of the amendments? The amendments seek to regulate motorized bicycles as pedal cycles. Gone are the days, Sterling, where a bicycle was intended as a means of exercise, that the only form of energy was the one that you produced. But now bicycles have motors in them. And whilst not being prepared to license them as a motorcycle or a vehicle, we had to come up with a category.
Those electric bikes specifically?
Yes, those electric bikes, exactly. So now they're now registered or recognized as pedal cycles under the law.
Before they would be vehicles.
Exactly. And of course, there's different criteria to two wheels than there are four wheels, but the law didn't distinguish.
But licensing and insurance and all that
all of those things, exactly. So now they're considered pedal cycles under the Traffic Amendment Bill.
Okay. So, by the way, this is my sailboat, okay?
That is your sailboat. Fantastic.
We just passed a law to men, so now it's a pedal cycle.
So that is why it's got cracks in the hull then.
Yeah.
You tried to launch that boat by yourself.
Yeah, you saw it, huh?
We acknowledge that we look at the Traffic Amendment Bill and the traffic law. Most of it is to affect and improve the lives of citizens. But we're also a tourism destination, and it's about offering conveniences for visitors that perhaps allow us to compete more successfully. As the Speaker of the House once coined the phrase when he was Premier, the Cayman Islands aren't the only good-looking girl on the block. We're competing against other jurisdictions, and therefore our laws have to continue to evolve. So one of the amendments seeks to provide, or sought to provide, that visitor driving permits for those who've been allowed to remain on the island for more than 6 months but didn't reside here could be allowed to use their existing license from a previous recognized country for up to a period of 6 months in order to drive. Likewise, it allows visitors and new residents who are licensed under convention countries such as the U.S., the UK, Europe, and Canada to be able to drive in Cayman under their previous license for up to a period of 6 months without having to obtain a Cayman license. When we look at cars on the roadways, we see that these cars are made up both of cars that are bought from dealers as well as cars that are sold secondhand to other persons. One of the more often than not occurrences that was discovered at DVDL was when persons sell a car. I sell my car to you. I decide to leave out the fact that I've got back fees and penalties. So once I've transferred the property in your name, then you take the car to go get licensed. You realize that, wait a minute, there's 3 years back licensing that is now due before I can get this car on the road. normally in a transaction a sale agreement, if I knew about that in advance, then certainly you would take that cost off of the purchase price, and then I'd go pay it myself. That unfortunately was creating a chaotic situation. So now we made an amendment that owners of vehicles, first owners, have to pay the fines or any back fees prior to being able to transfer that vehicle onto a second or a third party. That is to protect the buyer in many respects. We will allow for the reintroduction of mokes and mini-mokes. Now, this was an interesting aspect because I mean, the first driving experience I ever had, albeit was holding a wheel and sitting on the knee of my father's lap, was in a mini-moke. So I was kind of excited to see, the opportunity for mini-mokes to return. There was conversations in the debate that, there was a reason why mini-mokes were taken off of the recognized vehicles, perhaps for safety purposes. First of all, improvements in these manufacturers have improved the safety features, so we're not talking about the mini-mokes of our fathers or our grandfathers' era. There are also things like when we look at the revitalization of Georgetown, the restricting it to vehicular traffic. There may be avenues, business opportunities, entrepreneurs for these vehicles to make a comeback. When we look at some of the aspects, some of the developments on the wider 7 Mile Beach, where there's going to be creation of nature trails, or not even just 7 Mile Beach, when we look at what's going on in the eastern districts, we believe there are opportunities coming down the pipeline, economic opportunities, where these mini-mokes can form part of regular society. Whether or not these mini-mokes are allowed to drive on the main thoroughfare or they're restricted to, off-road activities, whether they're governed, these are discussions I think would need to happen as we move through this. But one of the amendments sees the reintroduction of mini-mokes. Another issue that's not so minor is the issue of the illegal motorcycles on our roadways, oftentimes performing reckless and dangerous stunts. The amendment to the traffic law will now empower police constables to seize motorcycles and mopeds that are being used in a dangerous manner.
Why not cars as well?
I guess perhaps cars is the next evolution of this, but I certainly don't see. I mean, if cars were being used in a dangerous manner to the extent that motorcycles and mopeds are, I mean, as we see in the day-to-day occurrences, the weekend occurrences and whatnot, then perhaps maybe we would want to add them to that list.
Okay.
But at the moment, this is a part of enforcing road safety and a recommendation that I think was largely accepted by the government from the police.
All right. Before we take the final break, did any of the amendments ban the importation of the dirt bike?
It didn't necessarily ban the importation of the dirt bike itself. Certainly you can bring it in. You have to have it fitted with lights.
No, I just want a dirt bike to go ride on my land somewhere up in the bush.
No.
Do I still need to go through and do that? If that was the case.
There was no ban on motorbikes. There was a prohibition on the importation of public passenger vehicles that are imported that don't fit certain safety criteria. So if you want to bring in a bus that is, a chopped bus, was a car with a bed attached to it, not conforming to safety criteria, but is going to be used to carry passengers, then we prohibited the importation of those makeshift vehicles, if you will. But so far, there has been no ban on motorcycles or dirt bikes.
Or dirt bikes at all. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of, but no.
All right.
Not at this round.
All right. Respectful as well. I think we've got a final break, and then we'll come back and conclude it. Mr. Harris, always a pleasure, man. Stay tuned. We'll talk today.
The empowered woman. Performance-driven, strong-spirited. You need a ride to match your drive. Whether boss by day or mom by night, with lots of legroom and space for sports gear and other things. The new Ford EcoSport is built for you, and it's now on sale for only $22,000, saving you $2,900 off during That Motors summer sale. Stop by That Motors, where you can also save $3,000 off the new Ford Ranger XLT double cab truck. Just two of the many great deals going on now. Advent Motors on Walker's Road.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Did you know that recycling collection containers are located island-wide in Grand Cayman? The Department of Environmental Health's program is an integral part of DEH's waste management responsibility in the Cayman Islands. Start your recycling program at home today. Put your cardboard items in appropriate DEH recycling containers at all Foster's supermarkets, Kirk Market, or Hurley's Grand Harbor. Help keep Cayman clean. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, go to www.deh.gov.ky.
This weekend, Cayman Up Close, a weekly special feature from Radio Cayman News.
I'm Shanda Gallego.
Shanda Gallego goes behind the scenes with Cayman's newsmakers, artists, and emerging talent to get their unique and personal experience, their real story.
This week, we turn the spotlight.
Sundays at noon, 6:10 p.m. and 10:10 p.m. and always online at radiocayman.gov.ky. Tune in for Cayman Up Close.
Cayman Up Close, brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands for over 40 years.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And thanks so much for the company of MLA and Councillor Austin Harris as we take us through what transpired. Now, you imagine taking this long for us just to get through talking about what was passed. Right. No wonder the legislators, people got to recognize a lot goes on. Right. Short jam session.
We've managed to do it in relatively short order, about almost 2 hours. Yeah. It took, again, the better part of 36 hours to get through all of this in 3 days.
But two of us, and one of us listening, the other one only giving us the salient points. So
that's right. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? There's an idea to reduce the size of the Legislative Assembly. One speaker, one member, end of story. Let's get it done. Let's move
all
the paper. All West Bayers can't go wrong.
I can see the Premier talking to the Deputy Governor and saying, boy, how about talk to that boy?
No. I'm a Georgetowner. I've been a Georgetown boy, regardless of what my lineage and heritage says. But I'm a Georgetown.
You got your passport, things stamped to say you came on here?
Oh, you mean I got my passport says stamped? I get the little provision where every time I want to go into the Republic, I can come and go as I like. But, that special provision. Just a few more tidbits on the traffic law. We've allowed for licensing, particularly new vehicles, to be licensed for up to 5 years.
Used to be 3 before?
Now we've extended it to 5. Again, we're building, better, safer, more maintenance-minded vehicles, so there's no reason to inconvenience new car owners every year. Also, the driver's license, albeit that we're using the driver's license more and more these days, particularly when we travel. But if, the regular public is anything like me, I rarely even look at my driver's license, let alone know when it expires. We allowed for, in the amendment, to set the expiration date to our driver's license to fall on the date of our birthday. So whilst we may not always know when our driver's license expires, we will remember our birthday.
But it used to be, right, that it expired on your birthday.
It used to be, but it wasn't necessarily, penned into law. It was a question of, well, if we can work it out from the time you applied for the driver's license and wanted to expire on your birthday, it could happen in some cases. In other cases, it didn't happen because your birthday may fall at the 6-month mark as opposed to the 12-month mark. It was such a high request, put it that way, from the end user, citizens, to say, listen, this would be convenient for me. Can we make it happen? We said, yes, we can make it happen. So there it is. What else is there? We've implemented the electric vehicle registration system. So again, persons wanting to either own an electric vehicle, the ease of registration, or of course the move towards the readable plates to create the framework in which that will operate under. That was one of the amendments. And last but not least, we created the proviso in the bill to permit amphibious all-terrain vehicles to be driven in designated routes and at speeds no greater than 35 miles per hour. Amphibious vehicles, these are the ones that are a bus that drives on the roadway, but if it's near a body of water and there is a landing, he can actually drive into that water and float away and operate like a boat. There are a few tours that have these amphibious vehicles, but the law didn't account for make provisions for their existence. So now we have created recognition for it, again on the proviso that they are designated to run specific routes, like for example from say a cruise port to say Dixie Cemetery and back, but not any further along the major highway, the Harkwell bypass or otherwise to get to the Kimpton. Also, they are restricted to travel at no greater speed than 35 miles per hour because of the nature of the vehicle itself.
So the vehicle can't travel on roads with posted speed limits of 35 or more?
The vehicle itself will not be able to travel at greater speeds than 35 miles per hour. So I would suspect they would be governed.
Okay.
And again, the routes in which they are allowed to run will be pre-designated routes.
So we can buy a hovercraft now if we choose.
You could, but you're going to have to say, listen, it's only to be hovered from point A to point B, and nowhere else, and certainly at no speeds greater than 35 miles per hour, which takes the fun out of the hovercraft, really, doesn't it?
It takes it out of mine.
Exactly. So, there were other changes, the music and dancing law, the liquor licensing amendment bill, that we simply ran out of time to this afternoon. But in many cases, they're minor adjustments that are simply intended to create greater efficiencies and remove some of the bottlenecks and challenges that persons have identified has existed for some time, so that we can smooth out the process.
Now, with the, as I said, mentioned the music and dancing now, so that issue with New Year's Eve or if an event now is on a Sunday night, Monday's a public holiday, the practice of people starting at 1 minute past midnight or seconds after midnight on a Sunday.
Well, what it does is previously you had to apply to the government on New Year's Eve if New Year's Eve fell on a Saturday or a Sunday. Now under the amendment, you can now apply to a board to permit music and dancing on a Sunday where New Year's Eve falls on a Saturday or a Sunday. This one is one of those sectors that hasn't received across the board support, but we have to recognize that number one, New Year's Eve is a big day in the economic year. So whether it be job opportunities or other social engagement opportunities for your country, it's important when you consider that we're a tourism destination. So if you're a visitor to the Cayman Islands, you want to celebrate New Year's Eve in your hotel room, or you want to have dancing or otherwise on your deck. They can do this everywhere else should they be restricted in the Cayman Islands. So it has a large economic importance to us. And the manner in which we went about answering these questions, though they're rare, but when New Year's Eve does fall on a Saturday or a Sunday, then we have to have that challenge of it coming up against our traditional laws, and someone's got to be able to make a decision, whether good or bad, pro or con, whether you accept it or not. But somebody has got to be able to make that decision. So the law makes provision for these decisions to be made largely by the board, as opposed to the challenge and sometimes the delay of making it through a government body. We've also exempted performances of music and dance given at certain venues for the primary purpose of cultural, artistic, or religious purposes. Likewise, we've also waived the fees for occasional licensing of events that relate specifically to national festivals. So, you want to have a concert and you want to bring in a band and et cetera, there's a certain set of criteria that you have to meet, plus associated fees that you have to pay. But if you're a Pirates Week or Bada or some other culturally sensitive event that highlights the culture of the Cayman Islands, both to our residents as well as our visitors, then we reduce those fees. It's about removing some of the bureaucracy and, again, creating opportunities for our people to highlight things of a cultural nature. We also amended the law to permit music and dancing at the airport or the seaport, specifically on Sunday, to greet visitors. Again, this is about, the quality of service delivery. Nothing says the Caribbean and you've arrived to a person who's never come to the Caribbean before, like steel pan music and maybe singing and dancing at the airport when they come in. They feel as if their vacation has begun. It's a nice touch. Previously, we were restricted from doing this because of our previous laws. We made these specific amendments to allow for it to happen on a Sunday, but specific only to the airport and the seaport as a means of supporting and bolstering our tourism product.
All right. Mr. Harris, I believe we have time for one final call. As Mr. Fox able navigates. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Afternoon again.
Afternoon again, sir.
Mr. Harris, why would we have it go to a board to apply for New Year's extension? I mean, it's not like the government's going to say no, right?
Well, I think
why not just make it automatic?
Well, again, I think each there has to be a degree of control somewhere.
In relation to what? Like, give me an example.
I guess I can't. I mean, depending on the event. I mean, let's how can I put this? We have seen establishments that perhaps when you and I were growing up, we would never see in Cayman. We don't have strip clubs, but maybe we have semi-strip clubs in the Cayman Islands. Suppose one of them wanted to bring down an event for New Year's Eve. They want to have a huge New Year's Eve party, but it was more questionable than just simply providing music and dancing on a Sunday to celebrate New Year's. But there may be some other entertainment factor that you would want to be able to say, well, maybe we want to grant this, maybe we don't want to grant this. And again, this is entirely off the top of my head. But I do believe that if we allow an open roadstead that says, you know what, automatically if it's New Year, everybody who wants to have a party can have a party, I think there is room to suggest that we could very well end up with unintended consequences by opening up that landscape and allowing a party to take place that perhaps does not necessarily fit with what is considered, I don't know, best interest or conservative or whatever. It does not suit the image of the Cayman Islands or the one to which we believe in. So there needs to be a degree of control. But does that control have to be, you have to apply to the government, which at Christmas time, maybe most of them are on holiday, maybe, the efficiency of when that response will come will be somewhat delayed. Why not give it to a board that's designed specifically to answer those applications?
Yes, sir.
The things that would be unacceptable, right?
Yes, I mean, I can't think of unique specific occurrences, but
I think that's true, right?
To allow for it.
If the board would have to be supplied with a list of things that's unacceptable, then just write that into the law to say that these things are unacceptable.
Well, you know what, Mr. Warren, probably in the next evolution of this discussion, maybe that might come. I can't say that it will. But certainly, again, this is an attempt to address a challenge that does not happen too often. But when it does happen, it creates issues and there are delays. So rather than do nothing at all and leaving things the way they are, this is the first step towards doing what we believe is being flexible with the rules, acknowledging that industry will be industry and commerce will be commerce, and social opportunities will be available to all with as little restriction as possible, but still allowing that safety net that gives us the first right of refusal.
Well, one day I hope we get to a point where we have less micromanagement.
Yeah, well, maybe one day that would be great too. You'll get no objection from me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again. Ms. Harris, in closing, just perhaps two things from ours, given the liquor licensing. It's was reference to the exits and the marked exits.
Yes.
Can you clarify that?
Sure. The bill sought to, delete the requirements for premises to have plainly marked and lit exits. This was where the law had a bit of redundancy in it. Section 9 in the law already provides that before a premises can be granted a license to operate, that premises must be deemed suitable by the chief fire officer. So if we assume that the chief fire officer is the one who has the final say-so in terms of whether this building is compliant, whether it has the necessary exits, whether it has sprinkler system, whether it has fire extinguishers, then there's no need to include the need for it specifically plainly written that you must have clearly demarcated and lit exits in the liquor licensing law, when in order to gain a license to operate, you first need to pass the check and balance of the chief fire officer. So we felt that because the chief fire officer is included in the requirements of Section 9 of the law, then Section 8 did not need to have this specific wording.
I heard the logic, but just specifically two things then. One, there is no question, no skilled lawyer, as my uncle would say, no Mr. Brandon anywhere that would be able to argue, say, well, there isn't a need to have clearly lit and marked exits.
Absolutely. It's not diminishing that need at all. And I think that would be something that the chief fire officer would say absolutely necessary.
Because as I listen to you, I'll only just go back to that initial discussion about being Caymanian. If one section law says, well, you need to satisfy the chief fire officer of the need for exits, the analogy with the passport, the voter's ID, and the birth certificate, that would be sufficient to justify that you demonstrate evidence of being Caymanian.
I think that's a bit of a stretch.
No, it's one and the same.
But hey, all right, I'll go with you on that one, only because I sometimes have pity on you radio hosts. It was just literally out of redundancy. That was the only reason why. It's similar to we deleted the reference to representations made by the chief medical officer.
That was the second
one. In terms of smoking is harmful and otherwise to your health. Well, smoking is now prohibited.
And will remain that way.
And will remain that way for the foreseeable future. We remember the conversations leading up to, making the decision to ban smoking in public spaces, and the arguments at the time of those not in support of it said that it would lead to reduced business, it would lead to reduced customers, that would lead to job losses.
Quite the contrary.
Quite the contrary. None of those things have happened, but quite to the contrary. It has encouraged more people to come out. So now that smoking is prohibited in public places, again, the redundancy of putting in certain references in the law are no longer necessary.
Yeah. And we see that here, but I think I saw it in reports of the bars in New York.
Yeah. We freed up spaces in the law so we can put, new sections that actually mean something. You got to have, some space to fit them in.
All right. Well, Mr. Harris, the invitation to you and to all of your colleagues are always open to join us. And thanks so much. Any closing thoughts or you wish to share with us? And we certainly look forward to having continued dialogue on, how our government operates, the laws and policies it implements and amends.
Certainly. Dwayne, first of all, I want to thank you and Radio Cayman for affording the government the opportunity to come on and be transparent about what it's doing to the wider public, the citizens, the voters. Again, the government is, your coalition government of national unity is working hard, working diligently, and in some cases working smart. The amendments that took place in the last meeting of the Legislative Assembly, again, serve two purposes. One, as all debates within the House, bringing new legislation, amending other legislation, seeks to improve the lives of citizens that it serves, that exists. So sometimes it's to address gaps, sometimes it's to address areas that perhaps the law didn't envision. But overall, the laws and the work of the Legislative Assembly is to improve the life of citizens. It also provides the necessary foundations to be put in place that enables the government to achieve in some of its overall policy goals. And again, when I think of the policy goal of, at the end of this term, arriving at zero unemployment amongst Caymanians, then the necessary elements, amendments to enable work in order to succeed from the beginning, as opposed to setting them up to fail. These are important foundations in order to achieve those long-term policy objectives, to do what we say we're going to do, and this is how we achieve it step by step. We can expect more reforms, legislative reforms in the immigration law in the September sitting. We've talked about it before. The National Jobs Clearinghouse, which will require all job vacancies to be registered with work, as opposed to making it an optional occurrence, as was with under the previous registration, under the previous advertising of jobs. They listed the option that have you listed this job with the NWDA, and it was a checkbox exercise, but nobody was checking whether or not these advertisements were actually placed with the NWDA. The Jobs Clearinghouse, which will be that central processing point, which again will enable the government to achieve its goals of providing strategic oversight over the labor market, knowing what jobs are available and when, knowing what Caymanians are coming out of high school or tertiary education that can fill those jobs, knowing what Caymanians are already available in the workforce that can fill those jobs, over the need of having to bring in foreign labor based on statistical evidence, not seat of the pants, gut feelings, but hard evidence. This is what I think is the greatest strength behind work, that being workforce opportunities, residency, Cayman. And again, sometimes going to the House creates that opportunity to make the necessary changes to ensure the success of these overall objectives. So it was a grueling 3 days. I'm constantly impressed by the collaboration also between the government and the opposition. Maybe it's just the makeup of our current government and opposition, but yes, we have challenges. Sometimes we oppose each other. Sometimes the opposition doesn't quite see the open road as clearly as the government does, and therefore there's that need for that back and forth. But this last meeting, and certainly in the meetings that preceded it, we're seeing greater collaboration, working together to solve the problems and challenges of our citizens. That was certainly seen again in this last sitting of the House. And I certainly want to thank the opposition for continuing to work with the government, as I also want to extend my grateful thanks to all of the government members for making themselves available and for staying and diligently applying themselves to achieving the goals set out for itself in the last three sessions, or last three meetings of the last session. And again, the government is doing all that it can to be transparent so the public understands why we went to the House, what did we change, and what are we improving in these changes, or what are we hoping to improve. I think whilst the public may argue, about why we chose this road to get to this destination, it is important that they are kept aware of what their government is doing. You might not agree with every step, but certainly the government will do everything it can to be transparent about what it is doing and why it's doing in the greater public interest.
All right. Thank you again so much, Mr. Harris. Hopefully get a chance to continue chatting and enjoying and sharing.
Looking forward to it
Enjoy
again.
the rest of your week.
And you do the same, Sterling. Thanks a lot.
So much. Appreciate it. To our listeners, thanks for being with us this afternoon. Come back tomorrow for more Talk Today right after the midday news. On our schedule, we've got MLA from the opposition, Mr. Chris Saunders, slated to be our guest tomorrow.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, thanks. We try to slate things.
Yeah. No, he's again, another opposition member that I think sees the bigger picture. Again, we don't agree on everything, but I always enjoy listening to the member from Bordentown West. Mm-hmm. And certainly he has made a number of interesting contributions to the ongoing discussions, and I expect great things from him. So I'll be sure to tune in.
All right, there you go. That's tomorrow. Until then, be blessed.